Welcome to the Collaborative. I'm your host, Sydnee Walker, along with Cole Neely serving as guest co-host. Today, we are joined by Aaron Lockett. Lockett is the founder and owner of Next Page Sports, a full-service modern sports agency that represents professional athletes, NIL athletes, and coaches. A dual sport athlete at Kansas State University, Aaron earned All-American honors in both football and track and field. His professional football career spanned 5 years in the NFL and CFL. Aaron holds a bachelor's degree in marketing and international business from Kansas State and an accounting degree. Welcome.
Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
I will now turn it over to Cole.
Aaron, it is a pleasure to talk with you. Just planning for this conversation, it has been a joy just getting to learn a little bit about you prior to this, and then also now having this conversation with you. I'm excited, and I know you're going to really enjoy this conversation. But I really want to get started off just talking about who is your favorite rap artist today?
You know what? I'm a T.I. fan. I just won't let it go. Actually, we just went to the rodeo last weekend, and T.I. joined Bun B up there, so I had a ball. But yeah, I'm a T.I. fan through and through, and if it's not T.I., then it's Weezy. So those are my guys.
I'm about to say, I know we have some Atlanta people in here, so
there we go then.
Shout out to the A over here. So since you said that, I'm a little curious. So during your teenage years, who did you look up to? Who was kind of the guy for you that you're kind of like, yeah, if I had to choose between anybody in the world, like I'm going to this guy's concert and I'm singing this thing word for word, bar for bar.
Yeah, it was actually Outkast, right?
Oh.
And so, it was the whole Atlanta vibe that was dope for me. It was more just about lyrics, from a musician, being a rapper. I just liked how they flow, and I think it made sense for me, and that's just naturally who I sounded like. And so I just gravitated towards that type of music. Like I said, I mean, obviously in Oklahoma, where I grew up, we got a lot of West Coast music. So I heard E40 and Snoop and Dre and Pac and all of them, but it was just something about, like I said, the TIs of the world that I rock with.
I can't beat the East Side, man. I love it. You kind of said it, and I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up. You said you sounded kind of like Outkast. That's who your flow kind of reminded you. That's who you reminded yourself about was Outkast because of your flow. Do you think Strange could go bar for bar with Outkast?
I don't know about bar for bar, but I could hold my own. I didn't have no problem with that at all. I was the one that would jump on the radio and freestyle and jump on summer jams and do the talent shows. Honestly, I had a full-blown record deal going into college. And so I just had to make a decision between football and music. And so I chose football, but obviously music is dear to my heart. And so spent a lot of time my senior year in high school out in Soundcastle Studio in LA. So Pac and Kobe and all of them was out there. So it was a real thing, but obviously sports takes you a lot further if you do it the right way.
No, for sure. Speaking of, being a rap artist and everything, do you think you give us a quick rhyme?
No, it's a rap. No, you ain't gonna get me. We can talk about everything but that. But if I hear a Hot 16, I know what it's about.
Okay. I'll take that. Glad to have you here. You had a stellar career at K-State. I mean, we went from all conference to all American. I think Spencer James should have probably been created in your vision, the way that your college career went. But I want to take a moment and let's reflect on your collegiate career. What stands out to you? What were some moments that you kind of reflect upon that you talk to other guys about?
I chose Kansas State because my brother went there. So I had one brother that played, he ended up playing 8 years in the NFL. He went to Kansas State. And so we were super close. It's only us two. And so I was going to go to Tennessee or UCLA because of music. But obviously Kansas State was what I used to go to every weekend and watch him play. And so it just felt like home. It was 4 hours from the house. My parents can get there. But obviously playing big time college ball was important to me. Not the biggest of guys, right? I'm standing here, I'm 5'8", 160 when I was in college. But I can run like the wind. And so because of that, I found the opportunity to get on the field. And it's just one of those things where you make plays, right? And so coming from a very competitive high school, a lot of my guys, we had 6 guys go D1. So I was used to playing against tough competition, but just started off hot my freshman year and continued going. So very blessed to have an outstanding college career.
Going from your college career, you go into the NFL, and I'm pretty sure you've had these conversations with, the athletes that you work with now, go transition from collegiate, sports to professional sports, it's not easy, right? It's not an easy transition sometimes, and some guys could be the man in college, and you're not the man, in your professional sport. So, you have your stint in the NFL, and then you go to the Canadian League. What spurred that decision to go to the Canadian League instead of just hanging up the cleats then and there?
Yeah, I was drafted by the Buccaneers. And so when I got drafted by the Buccaneers, they had a pretty veteran team. And so
Yeah.
they drafted me more as a luxury than a priority. And so
Mhm.
based on that, they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year, but I got shipped off to San Fran. And so I spent my next 2 years in San Fran. And so I got to be around the TOs of the world. So I got to see who was the best receiver in the league at the time and how they act and how that works. And so what I found myself, I was around these 6'4", 6'5" guys all day. And back then, being 5'8", 5'9" wasn't a cool thing, right? Now it is, right? Now you can get in the league all day under 5'10", but back then it wasn't. And so I got tired of sitting on the bench, right? And so for me, it was cool to be in the league and it was cool making money, but I used to ball. And so I went to Canada to play. I thought I was going for 1 year, ended up spending 3 and had a blast. Played really, really well up there, but then I learned the game, right? It's like when you come back without that guaranteed money, you're kind of just spinning your wheels a little bit. And so for me, 5 years was good. My brother was still playing. Like I said, he did 8, so I kind of learned the game from him. But for me, it was just around, getting around the right athletes, taking the most of your opportunities and making plays when you can.
So after you're done, with your professional career playing ball, you make this transition, to quote unquote the real world, as a lot
Right.
of people like to say. You spent 17 years there. You worked in the oil and the gas industry. Tell us a little bit about what it was like doing that. What did you specifically do? Walk me through those 17 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I decided to stop playing, I was living in Houston, Texas, where I still live now, right? So I had moved out here to train with a lot of my teammates. And I think what it came to is, like I said, you make good money in Canada, but I was 27 at the time and I had played 5 years. And I was like, if I'm not going back to the league, what does it look like, right? And so I was trying to figure out, did I want to coach? Did I want to scout? Did I want to do some type of NFL personnel job? While I was doing all of that, I called my college coach, Coach Schneider, who was heavily tapped into a lot of the alumni. And he said, hey, go have this conversation with a gentleman named Rand Burney, and he works for, at that time, ConocoPhillips. And honestly, I thought it was a gas station. I'm like, I'm cool on working for a gas station. Like, that's not going to work for me. And he was
Yeah.
like, no, it's a corporation. And I was like, okay. And the reality of it is I had never really worked in my life outside of like mowing the yard when I was young and working at a golf course. Like I didn't have time to work in college. And so
Mhm.
for me, I had never really had a full-time job, let alone dress up. And so I ended up talking to this gentleman. And he said, I can get you an internship. Unfortunately, I didn't know what an internship was because I didn't do one in college, right? So I wasn't very familiar with that. You heard about it, but I never actually was part of it. And so he talked about you get an opportunity to come in for 3 months and showcase what you can do. We'll pay you like you're making 50,000 a week, and so you'll make good money. And if you do well, we'll keep you. And I was like, whatever, I'll do it, And then from that, I ended up getting a job. And just like everybody else, when you get a job, you want to work hard. And so I found myself 17 years later managing 35 something plus people, right? 17 years in oil and gas, learned all about stocks and bonds, learned about day trading, like totally transitioned from where like my passion was. But what I
Mhm.
found myself doing was being an agent without even realizing it, right? So I was helping everybody get to college into the league without even knowing it because of all of my relationships and connections. So I would pick up the phone and I would call my homeboy who's a coach for a DB coach for a college. And I'll say, hey, man, there's this kid here in Houston that's really good. Let me put you on the phone with him. And I would just make those relationships. And then that kid would go to that college, do well, and end up going to the league. And for
Yeah.
me, I didn't realize it was a job, even though I had an agent, right? When I played, I just didn't pay attention to it because at that time and point when I was coming out, my
Mhm.
agent, as I'm African American, was a white gentleman, right? He was in his 50s, and I talked to him once a year, right?
Mhm.
Like he told me, hey, you're going to play for the 49ers, or hey, you're going to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was all we talked about, right? It's different nowadays, right? Now it's around how do you have a relationship with your client, right? Whether you're playing video games or you're jumping on FaceTime, like it's just totally different. And so I was doing that with all of the young generation coming up. And so really when my nephew got drafted, Tyler, in the National Football League, I was like his right-hand man, right? So literally I was step by step as Tyler was going through. And obviously my brother played 8 years, so we were very familiar with the process. But like when he went to go train in California, I went out there with him and spent time with him, right? I went to make sure he ran the 40 well. Like all of those things that agents do, I was doing. And so once I understood that, for me, it only made sense to open up an agency.
So you make this transition, obviously, so you knew all this time you're basically doing agent work and you know that this is kind of like where that passion is now. You're
Yes.
transitioning from, just where, you're doing what you got to do to make a living, right? And then
Yep.
you do so well there, then you're like, you know what? I actually like working with athletes. Like, I really enjoy this. I love getting them where they want to go, getting them to that next level. This is my passion. So I say all this because I heard an interview, a few years ago that you did, and you were talking about your nephew again, Tyler Lockett, who unfortunately was released by the Seattle Seahawks,
Mm-hmm.
not so long ago. What was that like to kind of have him as, that guy, your first guy, and for him to
Right.
have the career that he's had so far in the NFL? What kind of gives you pride about looking at your nephew being the guy that he is?
Yeah, to me, it was a no-brainer, right? There's no way that you can go start an agency and your nephew's playing ball and he's not your client, right? And so that just doesn't make sense. And so honestly, I started on the marketing side for him, right? Because I
Mhm.
was all about proving what you can do, right? And so making sure that you can showcase that you can get them a deal, making sure that you can show up and walk them through how the deal works and what does the creative brief look like, and just show him that you are stacking those chips to where he starts to trust you as an agent. And then I transitioned to working to being his contract agent, right? And so from there, it's really learning the ins and outs of what contracts are. The negotiations, I was fine because we did that in the oil and gas, right? Just different. It's a commodity versus a player, right? But negotiations, negotiations. So whether you negotiate in a house or a car, right? It's all about trying to make sure you get the best deal possible for yourself and or for your client. And so for me, I had to remember that when I talk to Tyler about football, right? There's two ways I talk to him. One, as an uncle, right?
Yeah.
We just talk about football in general, right? What's it like to be a receiver? What is at that time and point Russell Wilson was his quarterback? Well, what is Russ seeing, right? How do you get open on the backside? What do you see when you watch it? That's more of the uncle side. But from the agent side, it's like, okay, this is coming into the third year of your 4-year deal, right? You're starting to
Yeah.
become expendable, right? Keep playing the way you are, stacking years, stacking 1,000-yard seasons, and then we'll go back to negotiating table. So just making sure that you can separate the two, but yet give him confidence as a client that when it's time to deliver, you'll be part of that conversation.
So speaking of young guys, we know for sure you got two guys, that signed with you guys, with Next Page Sports. You
Yep.
got LaJonte Wester, and then you got Jeremiah Hunter. So how do you go by identifying those two guys? Like, what do you look for when you're looking for your athletes? What's the standard?
For us, it was one of those things where we wanted to find the right guys, right? There's every potential client's not the right client for your agency, right? You got to figure out what is your niche and what works well for you, right? And so obviously, a lot of guys look at the draft board and go after the top guys just immediately, right? For us, if there's no relationship or connection, it's not sustainable, right? For me to go after a kid from Syracuse, New York with no connection, that's not going to last, right? It just doesn't work like that. And so you really start to peel back the onion and figure out how am I connected to somebody that I really, really like. And if you can find that connection, word of mouth is always better, right? Just across the board. And so, looking at LaJonte, coming from FAU into Colorado, he was just one of those guys that was the next slot that was going to blow up, right? Like he was just, you watch Travis all day, but you kept seeing this guy on the other side that just went to work all day long, right? For Jeremiah, just super plugged into a lot of people that was working with him. And so got connected. And so just through that, just trying to figure out, does it make sense for us to represent them? And then looking at the film, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously stats are one thing, but does he have tight hips? Can he run? Can he get deep? What's his body size? Like all of that really matters. It's almost like a scout thing. And then from there, I mean, we'll start to expand. Like last year we had Josh Proctor at Ohio State. We had Katan Aladapo out of Oregon State. I mean, we found some real good football players, right, as we go along. And we'll continue to expand as we go, but just finding the guys that are hungry for it, the guys that are willing to put the work in, and see the benefit on the other side.
So what's the goal for Next Page Sports this year, right? You guys are growing. You're doing some great things. Obviously, you got two guys that we just talked about, and probably more on the way. That's going to be representing the brand. So what's next for this year? What can we expect to see this calendar year for Next Page Sports?
For Next Page Sports, the other lane that we are heavily in is women's basketball. And so that's our other swim lane. So we had last year was our first year open up our agency relative to women's division. So we had 4 professional players, all played international. So we had one in Sweden, Portugal, and one out there in Mexico. This year we're looking to sign 5 or 6 more. And so the goal is at the end of the day, boutique agency, but still 35 plus clients is what we're looking for across the board. So a couple in personnel, We're looking to have 20 or so in women's basketball and another 15 or so on the field, right, within the NFL.
Right.
And so that's our goal, right? We just want to love on our clients hard, right? I've got an amazing team, right? I think that's the biggest thing. People talk about the agent, but it's the team, right? Like the people that I work with are just amazing. They show up and show out, right? And so it's not even about delegating, it's just about trust, right? And so making sure you have all of these different avenues for a client to feel like they've got a full service agency, I think is the biggest thing. But you'll hear a lot about us, right? Like we're just now starting year 4. We're tapping a lot of people on the shoulder and showing up, right? We're starting to show up in the rooms that people didn't think we would be in, do things that people didn't think we can do, and we've got so much more in store, right? We're heavily connected, right? We're just doing it at our own pace right now.
I like it. Slow roll, bang. We're still moving.
There you go.
Slow note. I love
Yeah.
it. Aaron, this was a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
It was fun getting to learn about you as well. I really get to hope I dig somewhere and I find some of these old rap songs. I know they're
There you
recorded
go.
somewhere, sitting on the shelf. I'm going to find them. I got to listen to them. But thank you again.
Aaron, thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak with us tonight. I'm super energized and fired up after hearing from you. You gave super valuable advice, ranging from your pro days to entrepreneurship. So I really enjoyed hearing from you, and we'll be on the lookout for Next Page Sports in the near future.
That sounds good. Hope to see you all soon.